A volcano that erupts every few hours, and people live on its slopes anyway. A country sitting on top of 3 tectonic plates simultaneously. A jungle city so lost, satellites only found it in 2020. Today we're exploring 40 mind-blowing facts about Guatemala that will change how you see our world. Fact 1. Guatemala shouldn't geologically exist in its current form. It sits directly on the collision point of 3 tectonic plates, the North American, Caribbean, and Cocos plates. Most land at a triple junction gets torn apart over millions of years. Guatemala didn't just survive, it built an entire civilization on the fracture. Fact 2. There's a volcano here that has been erupting almost continuously since 2002. Volcán de Fuego doesn't sleep. It erupts multiple times per day, every single day. Villages sit within 8 kilometers of its crater. People wake up to ash on their coffee and lava glowing at night, and call it Tuesday. Fact 3. Guatemala has 37 volcanoes. That's more volcanoes per square kilometer than almost any country on Earth. 3 of them are still active right now. In a country roughly the size of Tennessee, that's geological overload. Fact 4. Here's something that shouldn't exist on a map. Guatemala's coastlines face 2 completely different oceans, the Pacific and the Atlantic, simultaneously. The Pacific coast has flat, black volcanic beaches. The Caribbean coast has white sand and coral reefs. Same country, 2 completely different oceanic worlds. Fact 5. Guatemala's Lake Atitlan sits inside a supervolcano caldera. The lake itself was formed when a massive eruption collapsed the landscape 84,000 years ago. The caldera is so large, 3 new volcanoes have grown up inside it since. You're not just looking at a beautiful lake, you're standing inside an ancient crater. Fact 6. Imagine a lake bigger than some small Caribbean nations. Lake Petén Itzá in northern Guatemala stretches 32 kilometers across. It sits in the middle of the Maya jungle at an elevation almost perfectly at sea level. An inland lake in a tropical jungle with ancient sunken ruins on its floor. Fact 7. Guatemala's elevation changes are extreme enough to create entirely different climates within hours. The Pacific lowlands reach 35 degrees Celsius daily. The highland city of Quetzaltenango sits at 2,335 meters, cold enough for frost. You can drive from beach heat to near-freezing mountain air in under 4 hours. Fact 8. Every year, sinkholes swallow entire sections of Guatemala City. In 2010, a sinkhole 60 meters deep opened overnight, consuming a 3-story building whole. The cause? A combination of volcanic pumice soil, old colonial drainage tunnels, and tropical rain. The city is essentially built on an underground Swiss cheese of voids. Fact 9. Guatemala has a river called the Rio Dulce, the Sweet River. It flows from a highland lake directly into the Caribbean, cutting through towering limestone canyon walls. The canyon reaches 250 meters high in places. It looks like a jungle fjord that was never supposed to exist at this latitude. Fact 10. What if I told you Guatemala contains one of the deepest lakes in the Western Hemisphere? Lake Atitlan reaches depths of 340 meters. Despite decades of scientific study, its deepest zones are still largely unmapped. Below the tourist boats and kayakers lies an abyss that science hasn't fully explored. But that was just the beginning. Fact 11. Guatemala's northern region, the Petén, is one of the last intact tropical rainforests in Central America. It covers roughly 35,000 square kilometers of near impenetrable jungle. For centuries, the forest hid hundreds of Maya cities so completely that explorers assumed the land was empty. It wasn't empty. It was full and waiting. Fact 12. In 2018, a LiDAR survey, laser mapping from aircraft, revealed something staggering. Beneath the Petén jungle canopy were over 60,000 previously unknown Maya structures. Cities, highways, reservoirs, defensive walls, all hidden by 1,000 years of forest growth. In a single aerial survey, Guatemala's known Maya population estimates doubled. Fact 13. As recently as 2020, satellite analysis identified a completely unknown Maya city in the jungle. Named Ocomtún, it contained massive pyramid complexes invisible at ground level. Researchers only found it because the vegetation pattern looked slightly wrong from space. The jungle had been keeping a secret for over a millennium. Fact 14. Here's something that shouldn't exist geographically. The Maya city of Tikal was built in the middle of the Petén jungle, far from any major river. There are no large water sources nearby. The soil is porous limestone. The Maya engineered an entire city water system from scratch, with reservoirs, filtration, and distribution channels. A civilization thriving precisely where water shouldn't exist in reliable quantity. Fact 15. Guatemala's Pacific coastline moves. The tectonic collision between the Cocos Plate and the Caribbean Plate pushes Guatemala's Pacific coast westward by roughly 2 centimeters per year. That sounds small until you realize it's generated magnitude 7.5 plus earthquakes repeatedly in the same century. The ground beneath Guatemalans isn't staying still, ever. Fact 16. This border has caused diplomatic tension for over 150 years. Guatemala claims 53% of Belize, the entire southern half of the neighboring country. The claim dates back to an 1859 British-Guatemalan treaty dispute. Today, a United Nations-mediated process is still unresolved. Belize contains land that Guatemala's official maps still shade as disputed territory. Fact 17. Guatemala City is built inside an ancient caldera valley. The city sits in a depression formed by volcanic collapse tens of thousands of years ago. Surrounding the capital on 3 sides are deep ravines, barrancas, plunging up to 200 meters. The city physically cannot expand in 3 directions without building over cliffs. Guatemala City is trapped by its own volcanic geography. Fact 18. Every year, this mountain changes shape. Volcán Santiaguito, a dome volcano growing inside the collapsed crater of Santa Maria, has been erupting continuously since 1922. It is literally building a new mountain in real time. Scientists measure its growth in cubic meters per day. A mountain being born while people watch from below. Fact 19. Guatemala has a weather phenomenon locals call socomil. It's a powerful afternoon wind that strikes Lake Atitlan with sudden violence. Waves rising to 2 meters in minutes. Boats capsize. People drown. The Maya believed socomil was a spirit carrying away the sins of the dead. Meteorologists now understand it as a thermally driven wind funnel between the volcanoes. Ancient mythology and modern science landed on the same terrifying reality. Fact 20. Major shock moment. Guatemala's 1976 earthquake is one of the most geographically revealing disasters in history. On February 4th, a magnitude 7.5 quake struck along the Motagua Fault, one of the tectonic plate boundaries running directly through the country. 23,000 people died in 39 seconds. But here's what the maps showed afterward. The Motagua Fault had moved the ground horizontally by over a meter in a single instant. North America and the Caribbean Plate lurched past each other, and Guatemala was the hinge point. The earthquake didn't just kill, it proved Guatemala sits on one of the most dangerous plate boundaries on Earth. Fact 21. Guatemala's highlands receive rainfall so intense that entire mountainsides liquefy. In 2020, Hurricane Eta triggered a landslide that buried the village of Queja under 15 meters of mud. The entire village, homes, roads, fields, simply vanished beneath the hillside. This isn't a rare event. The combination of deforested slopes, volcanic soil, and tropical storm systems makes Guatemala one of the most landslide-prone countries on the planet. Fact 22. Here's something that shouldn't exist at this latitude. Guatemala has a cloud forest. Not a rainforest, but a cloud forest, where clouds physically move through the trees at ground level. The Sierra de los Cuchumatanes, the highest non-volcanic range in Central America, generates its own weather system. The mountains are so tall they intercept clouds before they ever fully form. Walking through them means walking through the sky. Fact 23. The Rio Motagua Valley runs along the actual fault line between 2 tectonic plates. On one side of the valley, North American plate geology. On the other side, Caribbean plate geology. Different rock types, different soil chemistry, different ecosystems, separated by a single river valley. You can stand in the valley and touch 2 continents simultaneously. Fact 24. Guatemala is home to one of the rarest dry forests in the world. The Motagua Valley receives less than 500 millimeters of rain per year, drought conditions, despite being surrounded by tropical forest. The reason? The mountains create a rain shadow so severe that cactus species found nowhere else on Earth evolved there. A desert, hidden inside a tropical country, created by mountains blocking moisture from 2 directions at once. Fact 25. What if I told you Guatemala has a region where it rains upward? Not literally, but the horizontal wind-driven rain of the High Sierra strikes cliff faces and flows upward along the rock surface. Locals have used this phenomenon for centuries to collect water from cliff walls. Geography so extreme it inverted the direction of water movement. Fact 26. Guatemala's Pacific coast generates some of the most powerful surf waves in the world. The continental shelf drops off so steeply offshore that Pacific swells arrive almost entirely unbroken. Waves at breaks like Paredon regularly reach 5 to 6 meters. They arrive from thousands of kilometers away without losing energy. The same tectonic forces tearing Guatemala apart also deliver perfect waves to its coastline. Fact 27. The Maya agricultural system in Guatemala was so sophisticated, it's reshaping modern climate science. LiDAR has revealed massive raised field systems, essentially artificial islands in swampy lowlands, covering hundreds of square kilometers. The Maya were farming wetlands 2,000 years ago, using techniques that agricultural scientists are now studying to address modern flooding and food security. Ancient geography, engineered by a civilization that no longer exists, teaching the modern world how to survive. Fact 28. This border is one of the most environmentally tragic in Central America. Guatemala shares its border with Mexico through the Lacandon jungle, one of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the Northern Hemisphere. The borderline cuts directly through the forest with no ecological regard. On the Mexican side, protected reserve. On the Guatemalan side, heavily deforested. Satellite images show the border as a razor-sharp line between green and brown. Fact 29. Guatemala has a city that may be the oldest continuously inhabited urban center in Central America. Huehuetenango, roughly translated as Place of the Old People, has evidence of settlement going back 3,000 years. It sits at 1,900 meters elevation, surrounded by the Cuchumatanes Mountains. Roads only reached parts of its territory in the late 20th century. A city older than Rome, largely unknown outside Guatemala. Fact 30. Second escalation spike. In 2018, Volcán de Fuego erupted with a pyroclastic flow. Not lava, not ash, but a superheated avalanche of gas and rock moving at 700 kilometers per hour. The town of San Miguel Los Lotes was hit with no warning. Survivors described a wall of gray coming over the mountain that moved faster than any vehicle could escape. 215 people died. Nearly 200 were never found, consumed entirely by the flow. The geology of Guatemala didn't just threaten, it erased. And the volcano has erupted multiple times since. Fact 31. Guatemala contains an underground river system so extensive it's still being mapped. The cave system of Naj Tunich stretches deep into the Maya Mountains. Maya priests used these caves as sacred portals to the underworld, painting their walls 2,000 years ago. Modern cavers exploring the same tunnels still find painted chambers no outsider had ever entered. The Maya knew this land's underground architecture better than we do today. Fact 32. Every year, this mountain is actively destroying a town. The Santiago Atitlan area faces constant threat from Volcán Toliman's unstable flanks. In 2005, a mud and debris flow from the volcano buried the village of Panabaj. 1,400 people killed or missing overnight. The government declared the site a mass grave. It was never fully excavated. The village remains buried. The volcano remains active. Fact 33. Here's something that maps don't show you. Guatemala's western highlands have over 20 distinct indigenous language groups. Not dialects, full separate languages, packed into an area smaller than South Carolina. Each language group developed in semi-isolated highland valleys, separated by mountain ridges. The geography didn't just shape culture, it created entirely different civilizations within the same modern border. Fact 34. Guatemala has a phenomenon called eternal spring, but it comes with a catch. The highland city of Antigua sits at exactly the right elevation, 1,530 meters, to receive ocean air moderated by altitude. The result? Temperatures stay between 18 to 24 degrees Celsius almost every single day of the year. No seasons, no extremes, just perpetual mild. But Antigua is surrounded by 3 volcanoes on 3 sides. The perfect climate exists inside a volcanic triangle. Fact 35. Guatemala's Rio Negro massacre site is now underwater. In the early 1980s, a hydroelectric dam, the Chicxoy Dam, was built on indigenous Maya Achi land. Villages that refused relocation were massacred. Over 440 people killed. The valleys were then flooded. The dam still generates 15% of Guatemala's electricity today. Beneath the reservoir, Submerged villages, submerged graves, a submerged crime. The geography of power generation built directly on top of human erasure. Fact 36. The highest point in Central America is Volcán Tajumulco in Guatemala. At 4,220 meters, it towers over every peak in Mexico, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. It is high enough to occasionally receive snowfall, snow, in a tropical country, on a volcano. Guatemala contains the roof of an entire continental region, and most people have never heard of it. Fact 37. What if I told you there's a place in Guatemala where you can walk between two geological ages? The Motagua Valley exposes rock formations from the Cretaceous and Jurassic periods side by side. Tectonic collision has pushed ancient seafloor crust to the surface here. Geologists come from around the world to study it. You can touch 150-million-year-old ocean floor in the middle of a landlocked valley. Fact 38. Guatemala's jungle is growing back and revealing things as it does. Reforestation in the Petén has allowed root systems to expand into previously cleared land. As roots penetrate the soil, they're destabilizing the tops of buried Maya pyramids. Trees are literally pushing ancient structures upward from below. The jungle isn't just reclaiming the land, it's unwrapping what was hidden. Fact 39. The Samuk-Champey Formation is a geological event that took thousands of years. A limestone bridge naturally formed across the Cahabon River, not built, just formed, spanning 300 meters. Above the bridge, turquoise pools filled with filtered river water. Below the bridge, the full force of the river thunders through a cave tunnel in darkness. Calm paradise on top, violent underground river beneath. Same place, same moment, two completely different worlds stacked vertically. Fact 40. The final revelation. Guatemala's geography shouldn't sustain civilization, and yet it has, continuously, for over 4,000 years. A country on 3 tectonic plates, 37 volcanoes, unstable soils, underground voids, hurricane paths, seismic fault lines running through its cities. The Maya didn't build here despite the geography. They built because of it. Volcanic soil is among the most fertile on Earth. Rivers cut trade routes. Elevation created defensible cities. Caves held sacred water. Every force that makes Guatemala geologically terrifying was also the force that fed, protected, and empowered one of the greatest civilizations in human history. The land wanted to kill them. They learned to read it instead. Guatemala is not a mistake of geography. It is geography at its most extreme. Compressed, volcanic, alive, and unfinished. Every earthquake is a reminder that the ground beneath it is still in motion. Every lost city emerging from the jungle is proof that humans have always found ways to thrive inside forces larger than themselves. The volcanoes are still erupting, the plates are still moving, and somewhere beneath the canopy, in a stone chamber that no satellite has found yet, something is still waiting to be discovered.